Hola. That is my little intro, but this is Robert, and thank you for tuning in to Station Square. And yeah, this is actually my second interview for today, immediately following another one that I just recorded not too long before this one. So both of these may go up at some point later today or around this weekend, but enough about scheduling. You just want to get right to the. I know y'all like to get cut right to the point these days, so we have Mr. Adam Roberts in the corner joining me to talk about VO entrepreneurship and all this other good stuff that is going on in the VO business now. So, Adam, thank you for joining me. I'm excited to do this with you today.
Thank you for asking me to be here, Robert. It is really fantastic. I love what you're doing with the podcast. And I think I had asked you about the genesis of Station Square because I'm actually from Pittsburgh. And for those folks who may be listening who don't know, Station Square is a big area in the city of Pittsburgh.
Uh,
But you said you're out in LA, right? Or in California?
yeah, California.
Fantastic. I love that.
Yeah, I came up with Station Square. I mean, I came up with this whole podcast because I really love just talking with people and getting to know, okay, so what have they done and anything interesting that they like talking about. Like, I just kind of like to get into the nitty gritty, like really getting to, um, not like this isn't like, okay, so what is your, I don't know, like if I was a psychologist, like really getting deep into, their personal lives, but just any fun facts about them, like anything interesting they like sharing, their careers, and just any a question that I would normally that not too many people usually ask them. So that's what this podcast is for. It's
I
off the
love
cuff
that.
and and we just discuss pretty much whatever. Yeah.
Fantastic. Absolutely amazing. I'm here for it.
Yeah. And I came up with the name Station Square because it was from Sonic. As you can kind of see in my background,
Oh
I have so
yeah,
many Sonic posters.
fantastic. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, so I have so many different posters in the background. So I mean colorful, I guess. And to make it fun and, very interesting. So, yeah, I guess with all of that said, uh, what have you been doing? Like, I know that you've been working on a couple of different projects. You've been working a lot. You've been doing a bunch of stuff, actually, for this year. So I'm just kind of curious to see how these last few years have been like for you, because I know with remote recording, it's kind of been like it's kind of start something that's become the new norm. So I'm just kind of curious about how your workload has been like over the last few, you know, years or so since we've been into this whole like I don't know something something.
I know, right? Something, something.
Yes,
So
something something. That's pretty much what I'm gonna refer to it now. It's something something.
hey, it works just as well as anything else we might call it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, so I am a
Yeah.
vocal coach and I'm based in Austin, Texas, though I work around the country with vocalists. And so I'm a little voiceover adjacent. I do sometimes work with folks who do voiceover, but most of my practice is working with folks who are singers and actors in either the film and commercial world or on stage. And I work with a lot of musical theater performers, but I also work with a lot of speakers. Maybe they're actors who do voiceover, maybe they are CEOs, maybe they are trial attorneys, anybody like that, in terms of vocal production. So, how can we achieve healthy, clear vocal production and help an individual feel like they are using their authentic voice in the work that they are doing? Because authenticity is a really important part, as you know, of our work in the voice community. So that is something that I, as a vocal coach and a vocalogist, am often helping people to pursue and hopefully to achieve.
Yeah, that is really amazing. I was also reading up on your about section because I like doing my research. So I am just also kind of curious to know what actually drew you into like, doing all of this stuff. Was it something based on experience or it was just kind of something that was just like, you know what? I like helping people. Why not?
That's a great question. And it's some of all of that, actually, in my case, which is that I sort of got into musical theater specifically as a dancer and as a choreographer. So not really necessarily so focused on the voice, but as is the case for many choreographers and dancers, after a while, some folks, the wear and tear on the body starts to take its toll, and so you pursue other avenues. Well, I had always already been pursuing a parallel avenue of music, even while I was choreographing productions and things like that. And so I went to school. I got an undergraduate degree in music theory, and then I went and got a master's degree in music theory. And during that time, particularly as I was doing my master's degree, I was doing a lot of vocal coaching that was musical theater specific and accompanying at the piano of musical theater majors, particularly at Florida State University, where I did my master's in music theory. And through that work, and later when I came to do doctoral studies at the University of Texas here in Austin, which is why I moved to Austin initially, almost 20 years ago now, not quite, but we're almost there. I was enrolled in a couple of vocal pedagogy courses as a doctoral student, and then also was really exposed through that work to the Alexander technique. And both of those things together really were what sort of catapulted my transition from the world of dance and choreography into voice training and vocal coaching. And as you said, the desire to really help folks has always been something that was near and dear to my heart as a choreographer, but also as a dance teacher. And then, as you know, the world of the voice is very multifaceted. We have this one side that is very biologically and scientifically driven, and we have the other side of the voice, which is the performative side, which is the interpretive side, which is the side that really interfaces with our identities and, as I said, with the authenticity of those identities. So I saw the voice and voice work and the support that a vocal coach and a voice trainer can give to students and clients as a way to continue my work in supporting others' careers in the performing arts and in film and in commercial work and things like that.
Yeah, right on, man. Yeah, so you've spent most of your days as a vocal coach and being a director, and you wear a lot of different hats. So, do you find that it's something when it comes to juggling all these different responsibilities and these different like professions that you're in right now, how do you find that, the balance of like, hey, I know I'm really good at this, so this is something that I'm gonna put most of my time and energy into, or is there something like, okay, it's a part of disciplining yourself and knowing like, okay, so I'm gonna clock in this many hours doing this, and then I'm gonna spend the next part of the day doing that, or just how's your process like when it comes to balancing all these different responsibilities and taking care of, work, when it comes to, online and even outside, like personal, life and stuff, like balancing it all out, essentially.
Such a great question, that you bring up here. And I think that there is not one right answer or one right fit for everyone, of course. But I can tell you that the variables that I take into account when I'm thinking about juggling the different responsibilities that I have and the different work that I do, one of those things is that for me, I have always been someone who has been very fortunate, very blessed to be in situations where I was able to do a lot of different kinds of work at the same time, by which I mean I was pretty intentional about seeking out opportunities at each sort of stage of my life and career where I wasn't doing the same thing all day, every day. And I think that that's because that's something that is very important for me personally. Some people they really enjoy being in one industry for a certain amount of hours in a day, and then they sort of flip that switch off and switch to personal life or whatever else. And that is a really great thing for those people. For me, I have always just been, my personality and my life have always kind of wired me to be someone who enjoys doing a lot of different things at once. And I find that that gives me release emotionally and mentally and even physically sometimes from doing one thing consistently and constantly. And so that is one thing, the desire to sort of have a lot of different things going on so that I don't get burnt out with any one of them. Then there's also the financial side of the equation, of course, and all artists and entrepreneurial type people know this, that, at the end of the day, you have to make sure that your income is adding up to whatever goal you have set for X amount of time. And of course, the work that we do, we all know that there are things that contribute more or less to our overall income, that come from each of those pies that we kind of are putting in the oven and baking in terms of projects and in terms of the work we do. So certainly making sure that I'm hitting the financial goals that I set for any given time frame is an important consideration in so far as how I balance the projects that I'm working on as well. And then finally, we already talked about this a minute ago, but really the impact that my work is able to make is important as I'm thinking about that as well. So sometimes I know that I have to decide between project A and project B, for example. And sometimes when there's not a clear way to decide those things, for example, if they both are going to take about the same amount of time, if they both are going to result in about the same amount of income, things like that, and I have to decide somehow which of these projects I'm going to take, then I kind of can look and say, what is the impact that this project is likely to have on other people? And sometimes it can be an easier decision when you can look and say, well, I can make a bigger impact on the lives of more people through this project, project B, say, than I might be able to through project A. And that can be a way to determine at any given moment how much work is getting put into a given project. And so, that's how I think about where is my balance going to be, my timeline on projects, the projects I'm going to say yes to and commit to. Those are some of the factors. Obviously, that's not an exhaustive list, but those are some of the factors that I'm thinking about whenever I consider one project over another.
Yeah, that is an amazing response, by the way.
Thank you.
Because I know with we juggle so many different hats, like I said, so it can be really easy to get too consumed or focus on one thing and then you have to remember, oh, there's stuff that I got to do later on. So it can be really easy to either get distracted or get too invested into something. So it's best to set up a schedule and know when's the best time to clock out, when to actually take care of it, or if there's something, if you're like, I don't know, if you want to go extra and take care of something like that is not on your schedule, but you just wanted to knock that out, by all means, just do it. Just be a
Absolutely.
daredevil and just, it's off to the races. Anything is possible. Let's go.
Yeah, as long as you're
Kind of like a
balancing
good
that.
workout. Yeah.
Well, it is, you're exactly right. It's like a good workout, as long as you're balancing that with self-care, of course, because we all know that
Yeah.
burnout is a real thing. And we all know that at different points in our career and in our lives, we have to hustle more than others. So we have to really make sure that we are setting up wide enough margins for ourselves, that we're not pushing all the time so close to the edge of the paper that, we're really overdriving our brain, our bodies, our spirits, all of those things. So I think for me, one of the things that I learned at some point in my career was the importance of figuring out how, for me, I was going to set up margins that were wide enough to give me some leeway, some wiggle room in the work that I was doing without burning myself out.
Yeah. Um, and that's all very solid advice that I honestly, it's going to be pretty hard for me to try to give something that is like, okay, pretty much everything what you said, it just hit the nail right on the little old noggin. So it's like, what can I add to that? That's the thing. So I do want to go over like your little bio, which
Sure.
I was kind of because you've been nominated for a Tony Award and you've done all this other stuff, but what kind of caught my attention was you did two, you did a couple of concert tours around Europe. So how was that little, journey like? And the whole experience of getting to travel, from into different countries and going on all these tours.
That's a great question. I do want to clarify just one thing you just said,
Yeah.
Robert, which is that I myself have not been nominated for a Tony Award. I have had students that have been nominated for the Tony Award. So I think that that's just something I want to put out there and clarify, which for me as a vocal coach and as a voice trainer, for me, it's all the more special that it would be students, clients that would be
Oh
nominated
wow.
and
Okay.
recognized.
I just write the students if they perform Broadway already.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is so great.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's just, I hold
My
just,
brain.
you're so great. I hold just as much, if not more pride in the fact that a student or a client would receive that kind of an
Sure.
acknowledgement,
Honestly,
of
yeah.
course, right? So to
Oh,
answer your question about the tours, first of all, I will say that I think a piece of advice I might give to somebody is, take opportunities when they come to you. I was quite young when I was given the opportunity to choreograph my first tour, concert tour over in Europe. And it's funny because, initially I had another production in Ohio that I had committed to choreographing that happened at the same time. And even though I knew that I would very easily be able to entrust that job in Ohio to another colleague so that I could go and do this concert tour in Europe, I being a 21-year-old, I think at the time, I hadn't really prioritized things in the right way in my mind. And someone said to me, you really should reconsider saying yes to this concert tour, because I had initially said, I have this other thing I've already committed to, even though I knew I would be able to get someone who would be great to cover that. And somebody said to me, and I honestly, I can't remember exactly who it was. It might have been one of my parents, said to me, I really think you should think about saying yes to this concert tour in Europe and choreographing it. And I said, okay. And so I said yes, and it was one of the best decisions, that I have ever made, because the ability to experience other cultures and to get a literal world view, and not to say that Western Europe is a worldview, but we all know that is not exclusively the case, obviously, but to get to experience cultures outside of one's own immediate culture, and to have all of that paid for and to be paid for doing that is an opportunity that I was just very much blessed with. I did it 2 separate years, and this was with an organization that no longer is in existence, that was called SOA, the Sound of America. And as an educator, this was also a really amazing opportunity for me, because what the Sound of America did was they would audition high school students, instrumentalists and vocalists from around the United States. And I think most years that they went, because they took these tours maybe 30, 40 years. I don't know exactly how many years, but many, many years. And they would take students who had been auditioned from around the 50 states to America, or to Europe, sort of as ambassadors, if you will, and musical artistic ambassadors of the United States. And because it was educational in nature, the opportunities that these students had to perform at Notre Dame Cathedral, at St. Mark's in Venice, at Versailles, at these places that are typically closed to most people to get to perform in their lives, were very plentiful with this organization. And so it was really awesome. It was an awesome experience for me. But again, the really cool thing was to see these students experience something that they were so passionate about, i.e., performing arts, alongside other people who were also very accomplished musicians alongside them, and really get to work with staff members who were very accomplished in and of themselves. That was very cool. And then to add to that, the experience of really getting to do 6 countries over the course of 3 weeks. It was very fast. was a really cool thing to get to experience as an educator, especially as a young educator. And that standard that we held those students to do these European tours is something that I still think about a lot when I'm thinking about my standard as an educator and what I want to hopefully inspire and imbue in other student musicians, even, these 20 years later.
Oh man, yeah, there's so much that I could ask and I could like, go into, but yeah, that would just take up like a
We have a
whole nother
finite amount of time, right?
yeah, like it would just take up like another hour. So, what I do want to, I guess the next thing that I kind of want to focus on is your online courses, teaching voice for musical theater, which is now available, for motion. So yeah, you could just talk a little bit about, your courses, if you like, if you want to
Sure. Well, thank you for that
interesting.
opportunity, first of all. Um,
Yeah.
I have two online courses at the moment, and one of them, as you just mentioned, is a course that's called Teaching Voice for Musical Theater. And that was a course that I developed for a company that is called Forward Motion. And Forward Motion is a company that began, I believe, during the early stages of the pandemic. And that is because Forward Motion is an offshoot of a company that is New York City based and was very much before the pandemic geared toward music education in a physical way, in the sense that they would sort of coordinate groups that would come to New York City and would be performing in various venues and things like that. Well, obviously, when COVID hit, they needed to pivot like all the rest of us did and figure out what they could do service wise for the community. And what they decided they would do would be to create a series of music courses online that would be geared mostly toward music educators. And so there's a lot of courses through Forward Motion that are available on things like choral conducting or instrumental conducting or teaching strategies, all of these different things. And one of the things that they did not have was a course on teaching musical theater specific voice. And so I developed that course for them and I teach that course. It's available on the Forward Motion website for anybody who might be interested. And it's a course, my course is in 10 different modules, and there are sort of checkpoints and little quizzes and things and homework along the way. And the hope is that, perhaps someone who is a voice teacher at any level, but might not know the ins and outs and sort of special considerations for working with musical theater performers, that maybe this would be something that would kind of introduce them to thinking about how to work with musical theater students specifically. And then the other course is called it is about digital media strategies for artists and creatives, because my business partner and I own a company that is called Resolution Creative. And it's about making a resolution with yourself to be authentic with your digital presence as an artist or a creative. Because one of the things that we realized was a lot of folks rightly felt that social media was kind of an icky place and kind of a sellout place, and they didn't want to really be there as an artist or as a creative. And as you probably know, it's an important place to be when you are an entrepreneur in the arts on social media platforms. So we wanted to help people, artists and creatives, to sort of discover how to be authentic but still attain the goals that they are looking to in terms of their business as an artist and as a creative. So we have a social media for artists and creatives course. It comes with a 40 or 45 or 50 page workbook. I can't remember how many pages exactly, but it's a method that walks you through, as an artist or a creative, how to think about intentional, authentic presence for your digital media. And that is available on our website, which is resolutionary, like revolutionary, but with an S, resolutionaryworks.com.
Yeah, thank you for the information, man.
Thank you for the opportunity to share that with folks. Both were born out of a desire to help folks get a little more specialized in something that can seem really overwhelming at first. And hopefully, each of these courses introduces someone in a fun, engaging, and not too overwhelming way to concepts and things that can seem really lofty at first. So that's the goal.
Yeah. So, have you picked up anything like, I guess outside of work, what have you been getting into as of late?
That's a great question. I will tell you that I'm, I am a very fortunate person in that my work is also my play, and that I get to do what I do full time. I get asked sometimes by folks, okay, I love that you do all these things. What is your day job? And the fact that I get to say that my day job is being an artist, is being an educator, is being a trainer and a coach and a conductor, all of these things, and even a marketer, all of these things that I get to do fill and fulfill my life. So whenever I'm picking up something new, it's generally a new project. And sometimes that means putting down a former project. But my goal is always to have made sort of the maximum impact of any project that I feasibly could have over the lifespan of that project. So one of the other things that I've been involved with for the past decade is a nonprofit that two colleagues and I started 10 years ago this year. So this is our 10th anniversary of Tilt Performance Group. And Tilt is a theater company that's based here in Austin, Texas, that is on a mission to shatter disability stereotypes through inclusive theater. And we are about to have our 25th production, fully professional production at Tilt. And it will be our 10th anniversary production. And then after that show, we will sunset and wind down the operations of Tilt. And that's for a variety of reasons. It's very difficult to obtain funding in the arts, particularly in a city like Austin. And we feel like we've made a really, really big impact in the 10 years that we've been around. So as I set Tilt down, perhaps there will be one or more other projects and opportunities that I pick up. And the goal is always to keep that same amount of impact moving forward as much as I can in collaboration with the other people with whom I'm so fortunate to get to work. So that is a roundabout answer to your question, but pretty much everything that comes into my life in some way is informed by impact, by spirituality for me, by getting to work with other people who are really, really wonderful and similarly minded in the sense that they want to make impact in others' lives too. So that would be my answer to that question.
Yeah. So with your experience of like, because you're a director and you've had experience with acting, so how's like, what do you mainly prefer? Do you enjoy directing other actors and coaching them, or do you just love getting the chance or the opportunity to perform? If, if time allows,
Sure, that's a great question. As a performer, so I am a pianist and an accompanist, and I am a conductor. Those are the two ways that I perform.
Yeah.
So I actually don't perform as a singer or as a musical theater performer or as a dancer anymore. My performing these days comes from playing piano and from conducting. I am a musical director at a church here in Austin, St. Luke United Methodist Church. So I get to play at the piano every Sunday, and I'm always playing also through coaching and teaching lessons. I'm the director of a company with a really amazing colleague, Sarah Fleming Walker, called Entract here in Austin. So I conduct our concert versions of musicals with Entract. So I am getting to perform in that way, but I don't feel that I have any desire to be performing in those ways any more than I currently am. I really find the most fulfillment in my life by being a conduit for others' careers and goals and successes. And that for me is what really drives me the most in my work life, is how can I help support the dreams of others, of students, of clients, of the people that might be working at a theater company that, like Ontract, that we co-founded, or Tilt or something like that. So that, that's how I prioritize my time, is less about me as a performer and more about how I can support other people's goals, dreams, and ambitions and things.
Yeah. So I know you probably touched upon this earlier, but what are some of the biggest, like, I know you've discussed about burnout or self-care, but what are some of the other challenges and hurdles that you have to overcome working if you're doing this full time? Like everything that you mentioned, just doing it on a day-to-day basis,
That's such a good
professionally.
question. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me personally, there are two, I would say, big challenges. One of which is specific to me to some degree, which is that I have a vision disorder, and it is an optic nerve atrophy, which means that it's less sort of about my eyes themselves or my eyeballs themselves, and more about that nerve that connects the brain to the eyes. And so over time, the little individual, tiny, microscopic little fibers that connect the eye to the brain, in my case, atrophy and sort of die away over time. So it's been about 20 years or so since I was able to drive. And in a city like Austin that has some public transportation, but not a very robust public transportation sort of network for a city the size that we are, I often do have to consider which projects I'm going to take based on their geographical proximity to me. And so that is one challenge. I'm always having to sort of think about, well, I need to schedule all of Wednesday's things that I do on a consistent basis in the same area of town, or all of Saturday's things in the same area of town. And oftentimes I have to say no to projects that I would otherwise, like to be involved with, because they're just too far away, for someone whose transportation needs are pretty specific. The other thing I would say that is a challenge, is keeping up with communication, and I think that a lot of people are aware that that can be difficult. And so what I've learned over the years is that investing a little bit of resources into getting some help with that, particularly in terms of folks who are able to return some emails and some correspondences and do some of my scheduling. That has been a real help, a real blessing for me, and has allowed me to take on more work, because I have not had to have the anxiety of not returning emails, of not returning texts. A lot of listeners and yourself may be familiar with the I Love Lucy episode, where the conveyor belt just gets going so fast that there's no way they can sort
Yeah.
of get all the chocolates, right? And when I realized that was happening with communication for me, I said, okay, I do not want to be that person who doesn't return emails in a timely manner, or sometimes maybe even at all. And so I was able to get some help with doing those things. That has been a game changer for me, because it has allowed me to then be able to focus more on the actual projects, which of course is the really important place.
Yeah. So anything else that you want to share or discuss about? Like, and you can also promote your social media, any
Well, thank
last
you.
words, advice that you want to close us out on. Just, yeah, anything that comes to mind. No
Well,
pressure.
I want to thank you again, Robert. I think this is really cool what you're doing. I think you also, by sharing the guests and the information that you have with other folks, I think you are very much a part of other people's dreams and ambitions too. And so I want to thank you, and I want to applaud you for the work that you're doing through this podcast. I want to say, I think if I were going to leave people with anything that I could, I want to remind people that, in our society, people have a lot of opinions on voices. And I come across so many people in my work who have these phenomenal, truly phenomenal instruments, by which I mean, their voices are just spectacular, but they have they have waited such a long time to use their voices because they have been told by others in their lives, whether they're people who are close relatives or friends or people that are sort of, even maybe a little more distant than that, that their voices were, I'm air quoting now, bad, and that they shouldn't sing or use their voices. And I want people out there who have heard that from other people not to take those words at face value, because I have to tell you, so many of the people who come and take maybe a class with me that's singing basics, say, and I'll ask people sometimes, I'll say, gosh, your instrument is incredible. No judgment, just out of curiosity, why have you waited until now to pursue using your voice? And so many times, and this makes me so heartbroken whenever I hear it, people will say, a parent, a sibling, a teacher, a friend has told them, hey, your voice really isn't that good. Maybe you shouldn't sing, or maybe you shouldn't really use your voice professionally even as a speaker. Those things stay with people, and I often wonder, who are these people to be assessing someone's voice, right? And I think that is something I would encourage people who have been told that, who have thought that, who have heard that, to put that aside and remember that not everyone who uses their voice has to be at the top of the Billboard charts or has to be the person who has the most plays on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever service you're talking about. I always say, if you aren't an NBA player, does that mean you should never go out to the neighborhood, court and shoot hoops? I would hope people wouldn't think that if they can't be an NBA player, they should never touch a basketball. I don't think that people think about that the same way with the voice, and I would encourage people to have more confidence in your voice. That's what I want to leave people with.
Yep. And on that note, just do it. That's
Awesome.
yep. And that's the best closing that I have. Thank you so much, Adam, for being here today. And this should be going up, like I said, sometime over the weekend. So until then, stay tuned and stay being awesome, everyone. This is Jackson signing out, and thank you for watching Station Square. Sayonara.